Welcome to day 71 of Bhakti Vaibhava seminar, Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're on the first canto, and we are going, I don't have any sweets. We are going into, we're in the first canto, and we are going into tonight chapter 18. Chapter 18, right. Maharaj Pariksha cursed by a Brahmin boy. Pretty long chapter, 50 verses, that's long. Anyway, that's what we're doing. So let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasya Chadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapaturubhyascha kripas sindubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Right, so devotees, Bhakti Vaibhava, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18. Maharaj Pariksha cursed by a Brahmin boy. So there are five sections. First is verse 1 to 10. Sutta glorifies Maharaj Pariksha. Yeah. Second section, verse 11 to verse 17. The sages request Sutta to glorify the Lord. Third section, verse 18 to verse 23. Sutta prepares to continue. Fourth section, verse 24 to verse 38. Shringi curses Maharaj Pariksha. Wow, this is really pretty dramatic. Very, very dramatic. And then fifth section, verse 39 to verse 50, Shamaka Rishi chastises Shringi. Yeah, wow, this is really pretty powerful. Really getting into the essence, foundations of Srimad Bhagavatam, of the story, and of the understandings. So, okay, let's go through the first section, verses 1 to 10. Sutta glorifies Maharaj Pariksha. Let's go through the verses themselves. Sri Sutta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Pariksha, though struck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned. Verse 2. Furthermore, Maharaj Pariksha was always consciously surrendered to the personality of Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear. Due to a snake bird, which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahmin boy. 3. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyas, Shukadev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead. Verse 4. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions, even at the last moment of their lives. Right. Verse 5. As long as the great powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of the world, there is no chance that the personality of Kali will flourish. Verse 6. The very day and moment the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world. Verse 7, Maharaj Parikshit was a realist. Like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower, he knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. 8. Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless persons. Verse 9, O sages, as you did ask me, now I've described almost everything regarding the narrations about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaj Parikshit. Verse 10, those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead, who acts wonderfully. So that's the first section, verse 1 to verse 10. Sutta glorifies Maharaj Parikshit. So let's go through it in some more detail. Sri Sutta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Parikshit, though struck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned. Yes, so Prabhupada says the sages there, Naimisharanya, were amazed after hearing of the government, the administration of Maharaj Parikshit. Yeah, especially his punishing Kali and making him unable to do harm in the kingdom. So Sutta is also keen to describe Maharaj Parikshit's amazing birth and death. And he speaks this verse, Prabhupada says, to increase the interest of the sages of Naimisharanya. So verse 2, furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the personality of Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to a snake bird which was to bite him because of the fury of a Brahmin boy. Seems a rather unusual way of expressing that. Neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear. Yeah, I think, anyway, let's not get into it. Okay, so we get the idea. He was surrendered to the Lord, so he wasn't afraid. He was completely cool, focused on the Lord in the time leading up to his disappearance. So yes, Srila Prabhupada explains that a self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called Narayana Para. Narayana Para, which is not in the verse, but anyway. And such person is never afraid of anyone, anything, even death. For such a person, nothing's important, or nothing is as important as the Lord. Yes. So therefore, the devotee, great devotee as described here, gives equal importance to heaven and hell. He knows birth, death, heaven, hell, they're creations of the Lord. But in them, any of them, one must remember the Lord constantly. That was his standard, Parikshit's standard. So he was wrongly cursed by an inexperienced Brahmin boy. We'll be going through that shortly, the next few days or so. Yeah, that boy was influenced by Kali. But Maharaj Parikshit took it to be sent by the Lord. He knew the Lord had saved him in the womb, of course. And so if he was to die by the bite of a snake bird, it must be the will of the Lord. It's very interesting, actually. So a devotee always takes such things like kind of dramatic or very significant events in his or her life as blessings from the Lord. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore, Maharaj Parikshit was neither afraid of nor bewildered by such things. That is the sign of a pure devotee of the Lord. Right, okay, so verse 3. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyas Shukadev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead. Oh. And at last gave up his material body on the bank of the Ganges. Wow, interesting. Translation's a little different from what's in the book on the internet. So, okay. So anyway, the point of the verse is that Maharaj Parikshit understood the actual position of the Lord. And then Prabhupada explains the word Ajita. Krishna's unconquerable in every respect. It's in the second line of the Sanskrit. Yeah. So people can't know his position. He's unconquerable by knowledge. Yeah. Of course, with the devotees, it's different. So his dham is misunderstood by scholars. But still, by the grace of a spiritual master like Shukadev, one can actually understand the actual position of the Lord and his dham. So Maharaj Parikshit already knew these things, the position of the Lord, how to approach the dham. So he was confident about his ultimate destination. Therefore he was able to leave everything material, even his body. And Prabhupada points out that Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 59 says that one can leave lower things when you get higher things, the higher taste, param drishtva, nivartate. Yes, so that was the case with Maharaj Parikshit. Yes, that he understood the superior energy and superior activities. He had a higher taste. So things to do with the lower taste were really of no significance. And Prabhupada makes the point, you can learn these things from a spiritual master. So then Prabhupada, kind of carrying on the same point about higher taste, lower taste, or related perspective, unless we understand the superior energy, it's not possible to leave the material energy, inferior energy. Yeah, even for speculators. So by Krishna's grace, Parikshit got Shukadev's association and mercy. And that's to help us. So it becomes clear to us to deal with all these different things because we are facing them. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, it's very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literatures, but it's very easy to know him by the mercy of a liberated devotee, like Shukadev Goswami. Right, okay, so verse 4. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions, even at the last moment of their lives. So Srila Prabhupada explains, and we've heard it before, the highest perfection of life is to remember the Lord at the time of death. And it's possible if you've been trained under the supervision of someone like Shukadev, like someone like Prabhupada. Don't hear from speculators, of course. Yeah. So if you hear from the right person, everything becomes clear. And you can just go on till the end of life, which is a difficult time. So for ordinary people, it's hard to remember whatever, anything like specific at the time of the death. But by the grace of the Lord and real devotees, spiritual masters, you can do it easily. And Parikshit did that. So verse 5, as long as the great, powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of the world, there's no chance that the personality of Kali will flourish. All right. So Kali, of course, anyway, we know, he had wanted to sort of take over the world, but Parikshit stopped him. And Prabhupada makes the point, that is the way of good government. Yeah. Bad elements like Kali are always trying to extend their activities, but the state has to stop them. Yeah. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. Although Maharaj Parikshit allotted places for the personality of Kali, at the same time, he gave no chance for the citizens to be swayed by the personality of Kali. Verse 6. The very day and moment the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kinds of irreligious activities, came into this world. So yeah, while the Lord was here, Kali couldn't enter due to the Lord's presence. And the Lord and his names are one. They're just one. So even now, if there's constant chanting, no chance for Kali. This is how to drive him out. Yeah. So science, Prabhupada says, science has made advancement like radio, so the state should spread the holy names, and then a favorable situation will be created. And there's a lot more now than just the radio. I remember when I was a child, there was only the radio. There was nothing else, no television. Yeah. I mean, there were movies, but then you had to go out, and there was no internet, no computers, no cell phones. But still, there was life before cell phones. There was life before WhatsApp. So anyway, so if the governments do use all these facilities, the principles of religion, Prabhupada says, will be re-established. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, nothing is bad if properly used for the service of the Lord. Verse 7. Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. So anyway, Prabhupada really gets into this. It's very interesting. It's really interesting that Kali Yuga's fallen age, very difficult, so the Lord gives special facilities. And one of them is that you don't become a victim of sinful act unless you do it. Not by thinking about it. You have to actually do it. But previously, if you just thought about it, you'd become a victim of the act. But still, if you simply think of pious activities, you'll get the results. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's a very great soul. He wasn't envious of Kali. He just wanted to protect the citizens. But he also gave Kali a place. Yeah. So at the end, Prabhupada makes the point, at the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's said that even though the influence of Kali is there, but if one simply chants the Lord's names, one will get salvation. So therefore, Maharaj Parikshit organized chanting in the kingdom. In this way, he saved the citizens. Yeah. So, the Vedas say that by discourse on Krishna's activities, one can get free of all the disadvantages of Kali Yuga. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that by reciting the Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. Sure, amazing. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, these are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali. And Maharaj Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the age of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite culture. Okay. So verse 8. Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless persons. This is very short purport. And Prabhupada makes the point Those who are not devotees are careless and unintelligent. Unless you are thoroughly intelligent, you can't be a devotee. I'm surrounded by intelligent gentlemen. Yeah. Those who are not devotees fall prey to the actions of Kali. So it won't be possible to bring about a saner condition in society unless we accept the modes of action adopted by Maharaj Parikshit. And that is propagation of the devotional service of the Lord to the common person. All right, verse 9, just a sec. Verse 9. O sages, as you did ask me, now I've described almost everything regarding the narrations about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaj Parikshit. So it's another very short purport. Bhagavatam, of course, is the history of the Lord's activities which he performs in relation to the devotees. Therefore, the histories of the devotees are not different from the histories of the Lord. Yeah. And a devotee of the Lord, Prabhupada says, regards both the activities of the Lord and those of his pure devotees on an equal level, for they're all transcendental. Wow, this is very transcendental. Verse 10, those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead, who acts wonderfully. Okay. Right, so Prabhupada explains, systematic hearing. That's interesting, systematic. Yeah. Hearing about the activities, qualities, names of the Lord, that pushes one towards eternal life. And real systematic hearing means knowing him in truth. Yeah. And this is how we counteract birth, death, disease, and old age. Prabhupada concludes the purport and the section by saying, the cultivation of such a perfectional stage of life is the goal of human life and the attainment of transcendental bliss. Very good, we're making progress. So second section, the sages request sutta to glorify the Lord, verses 11 to 17. So let's read the verses. The good sages said, O grave Sutta Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us. 12. We have just begun the performance of this fruit of activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result, due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Govinda, which you are distributing. Wow, that's really... So 13, this is a very important verse. This is one of the few verses in Srimad Bhagavatam which is repeated, verbatim repeated, the Sanskrit. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. 14. The personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings. And his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him? So that was 14, 15. O Sutta Goswami, you're a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception, for we are anxious to receive such messages. Verse 16. O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyas, Srila Shukadev. And verse 17. Thus, please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they're very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga. The good sages said, O grave Sutta Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you're speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us. So when we hear the qualities of the Lord, we can remember what he said. Yes, it helps us. Yeah. Well, we can remember particularly Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse 9, that his activities are all transcendental. Yeah, very different from material activities. All divyam, divine, not like the birth of an ordinary living entity who's under the material energy. Anyone who understands this, either from the Lord or from authorized sources, is admitted into the spiritual world and engages in devotional service there. So the more we hear, the more we can know his transcendental nature and make progress back to Godhead. All right, let's go on to verse 12. We've just begun the performance of this fruit of activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result, due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead Govinda, which you are distributing. Yeah, so there are 2 paragraphs here in the purport. So the sages in Naimisharanya, they were very doubtful. Is the sacrifice working? Because there's lots of smoke and, it's not very nice. And they were aware there were many flaws in how they were conducting it. The first flaw I mean, at least generally in Kali Yuga, first flaw is a lack of qualified Brahmins who can do such a sacrifice. Because any discrepancy spoils the whole thing. It's, to some degree at least, it's like farming depends on the rain. Well, I mean, it depends on the rain. And so the result is uncertain. So any sacrifice of that sort in Kali Yuga is uncertain. But of course, nowadays, unscrupulous, greedy Brahmins, Kali Yuga, induce people to do uncertain sacrifices without telling them that the best sacrifice is congregational chanting, because they probably don't know that even, because they don't know a lot, today's so-called Brahmins. So Sutta is narrating about the Lord to the sages, and they can perceive that they're getting great results from hearing. It's working. So Prabhupada concludes the paragraph by saying, one can feel this practically, as one can feel the result of eating food. Spiritual realization acts in that way. Okay, second paragraph. So sages suffering from the smoke, they're doubtful of the result, but when they heard from Sutta, they were really satisfied. So Prabhupada refers to Brahma Vaivarta Purana, where Lord Vishnu tells Lord Shiva that men who are full of anxiety can vainly labor in fruitive and speculative activities. But if you do devotional service, the result is sure and certain. And Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in other words, nothing performed for spiritual realization or for material benefit can be successful without the devotional service to the Lord. 13. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Makes our situations in this material world look very pale and just insignificant. So, Prabhupada, purport. So Prabhupada makes the point, when there are similar points, two things can be compared. But you can't compare association with a pure devotee to anything material. You know, to association with a king or some super famous or super rich or whatever type of person. You just can't do it because there are no similarities, there are no grounds upon which you can develop a comparison. Yes. So anyway, Prabhupada, talking about the verse, he makes the point the materialists want to go to the heavenly planets. The speculators aspire for liberation. But when a person is frustrated with all kinds of material advancement, yes, material advancement, then you aspire for apunarbhava, which is mentioned in the second line of liberation from matter, not returning. So, but pure devotees don't aspire for heaven or liberation. They consider them phantasmagoria. And anyway, the devotees are already liberated anyway. So there you go. So, the pure devotees are transcendental in devotional service in the material world and the spiritual world. It's basically the same. So, Prabhupada makes the point, let's see, just a sec, kind of unusual point, let me just check if my notes are correct. The government service. As a government service, okay, as a government servant is always the same, either in the office or at home or at any place. So a devotee has nothing to do with anything material because he's exclusively engaged in the service of the Lord. Yeah. So the assets of devotional service are completely different from material assets. Yes. Yeah, okay. That's what Prabhupada says. So Sutta is a pure devotee. So his association with the sages is unique. This is why they feel uplifted. Whereas material association drives away benedictions of life. But Bhagavat Sanghi, association with devotees, does the opposite. All right. Verse 14. Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar, rasa, ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him? So, yeah. So anyway, Prabhupada points out Shiva and Brahma, two chiefs of the demigods full of mystic powers. Shiva drank an ocean of poison. Didn't affect him. His throat turned blue, but I mean, it wasn't that he had to lie down or, take something to offset the medicine. No, he just carried on. Whereas for us, one drop would be enough. Goodbye. Yeah. And similarly, Brahma's so great, he creates many demigods, including Shiva. Yes. So they are Ishvaras, but they're not the supreme. That is Govinda. They cannot measure his attributes. So he is the exclusive shelter of the greatest. That was the point. He's the shelter of the greatest. Not only is he greater than the greatest, so to speak, but he's the shelter of them. So Brahma is one of us. He's the greatest of us. Yeah. So, why is he so attached to the topics of the Lord? Well, because the Lord is the reservoir of all enjoyment. So everyone wants taste, but one in devotional service gets unlimited taste, not just some little bit here and there. So the Lord's unlimited, his name, attributes, etc., unlimited. And those who relish them do so unlimitedly, but still they're not satiated. And Prabhupada then quotes a verse from Padma Purana to establish that. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. And then the second paragraph here, short paragraph. So there's no end to these types of transcendental discourses. Yeah. In mundane affairs, there's the law of satiation. But in transcendence, there's no such satiation. So Sutta wanted to continue reciting, and the sages wanted to continue hearing. So Prabhupada says, since the Lord is transcendence and his attributes are transcendental, such discourses increase the receptive mood of the purified audience. Okay, and verse 15. O Sutta Goswami, you're a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception, for we are anxious to receive such messages. Okay. So, the Prabhupada makes the point, if someone's going to speak about the Lord, that person should have only one object of worship and service. That's Krishna. Plus, the audience should be anxious to hear about him. This is very congenial for spiritual discourses. But the professional speakers, and again, Prabhupada, he really points out the shortcomings of the professional speakers. The professional speakers and the materialistic audience cannot benefit. But the discourses here are transcendental. There's no motive for material gain. So therefore the speaker and the audience get unlimited transcendental pleasure, and they can continue for many thousands of years. So, but now, professionals have Bhagavat Saptahas for 7 days, and afterwards the speaker and the audience engage in material activity as usual. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, they can do so because the speaker is not Bhagavat Pradhan, and the audience is not Shushrushatam, as explained above. Verse 16, O Sutta Goswami, please describe these topics of the Lord, by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. These topics were vibrated by the son of Vyas, Srila Shukadev. Okay, so there are 2 paragraphs here. First of all, Prabhupada mentions, well, there's a controversy between guess who? The impersonalists and the devotees. Again, so Prabhupada's addressing. So we get it in our thick heads. What's the difference? So here, Parikshit got the lotus feet of the Lord. Yeah, that's what the verse says. He attained the lotus feet of the Lord by the instruction of Shukadev, who had been an impersonalist. As he himself pointed out, we read about it, 2nd Canto, chapter 1, verse 9. So he became a devotee, Shukadev. And such devotees are called Mahabhagavats. Yeah. And that term is used here for Sutta Goswami. Or is it Sutta? It's for Maharaj Parikshit, I guess. A little unclear. Yeah, it's Parikshit. Parikshit's a Mahabhagavat. So there are 3 levels of devotees, Prakrita or Kanishta, Madhyam and Mahabhagavat. Prakritas are temple worshippers, no knowledge of the Lord and the devotees. Madhyam knows the Lord, the devotees, the neophytes, and the non-devotees. That's interesting. The Mahabhagavats see everything in relation to the Lord and the Lord in everything. So they don't make distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. So Parikshit was a Mahabhagavat because he was initiated by a Mahabhagavat, Shukadev. So he was equally kind to Kali, and what to speak of others. Yeah, okay, and the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, as a very important point, very interesting point, there are many instances of impersonalists who became devotees, but devotees never became impersonalists. Yeah, and this is proof of Krishna consciousness being on a higher level. Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada points out, Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 verse 5, Kleshodi katarastesham. Klesha means difficulty. Avyakta sakta chetasam. Avyakta hi gatir dukam. It's very difficult. They suffer so much to achieve the goal. Yeah. So yeah, that's Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 verse 5. Prabhupada doesn't, he paraphrases it like that. So the knowledge Parikshit got from Shukadev helped him attain devotional service. And this perfection is called apavaga, or the perfect stage of liberation. So simple knowledge of liberation is material, but actual freedom from material bondage is liberation, and devotional service is perfect liberation. This stage is attained by knowledge and renunciation, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-12. Yes. Perfect knowledge is given by Shukadev results in attaining devotional service. And verse 17, thus please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they're purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they're very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga. Okay, let's have a look at the purport here. Just very short purport. I'll just read it. What was spoken to Maharaj Parikshit and what is very dear to the pure devotees is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is mainly full of the narrations of the activities of the Supreme Unlimited, and therefore it is the science of Bhakti Yoga or the devotional service of the Lord. Thus it is para, or supreme, because although it is enriched with all knowledge and religion, it is specifically enriched with the devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.